Welcome to Crafting with Clearwater Library. In this video, I will show you how to make a macrame plant holder using some common techniques such as the wrapping knot, the lark's head knot, and the square knot. For this project, you'll need 18 yards of white cord, 3 yards of blue cord, 3 wooden beads with a 1/4 inch hole, a sturdy ring, something to measure with like a ruler or tape measure, scissors, clips, and scotch tape, as well as a hook to work your project on. Take your white cord and cut it into 6 lengths of 3 yards. Then take your blue cord and cut it into 3 lengths of 1 yard. I'm using a cotton twine, but you can also use jute or hemp twine, anything that's appropriate for macrame. You see here how the ends are fraying a little bit, so we're going to use our scotch tape to keep that all together while we're working on our project. You just want to take a little piece of the tape here and wrap it around the end of your cord and pinch it together like you're making a little tape flag. Next, you want to take your scissors and cut the tape so that it comes to a point at the end. This will make it easier to send through the beads as well as keep it from unraveling. It should look like this. Next, you want to find a good place to work on your project. I used a command hook because they're easy to remove later and they're also sturdy. Just make sure that whatever you're working on, you can pull on a little bit because you will be tugging on the cords as you work on the project. It's also important to choose a ring that's substantial enough to hold the weight of a potted plant eventually. Our first step is going to be to take our 6 lengths of white cord and find the point where there's about 2 yards of cord on one side and 1 yard on the other side. We're going to use the lark's head knot first to secure our cord to our ring. This is a common way to start most macrame projects. You just want to make sure that your cord is nice and even and lays flat first, and then we'll take our ring and send the loops through the inside of the ring. Once you've done that, reach through the loop that you've made and grab the rest of your cord and send it on through. Pull the ends of the cords through, and you just finished your first step towards making a lark's head knot. Once you've done this, hang your ring back up on the hook so you can even everything out and make it nice and tight. Flip everything over so you can make sure that everything looks right in the back as well. Once everything is in place, you just want to go through and tug each individual cord. I like to do this to just make sure everything is nice and tight and even. You'll flip it over, check that everything looks good on the front as well. And I'm just fussing with these pieces to get everything to lay even before I tug on the individual cords to make sure everything is nice and tight. Of course, this doesn't have to be perfect, especially if you want it to have more of a handmade rustic aesthetic. If the ring you're using has some sort of seam or inconsistency, like this one, you'll just want to hide that inside of the lark's head knot. I'll take the ring, just slide it inside of your knot. Then pull on the lark's head knot one more time to make sure that everything is nice and secure. One thing I like to do when working on one of these hangers is to use some paper clips to secure up the sections that I'm not currently working on. This helps me keep everything organized, out of my way, and prevents things from getting all tangled up. The first thing that you want to do is locate the short cords. Those are the cords that are 1 yard long, and separate them out from the cords that are 2 yards long. You'll want 2 short cords and 2 long cords in 3 sections. Bundle up the sections that you're not working on and put them in your clips. And then flip your project over and locate the centermost section of cords. Again, you'll want 2 short and 2 long cords. The short cords will form the core of your rope, and the long cords are the ones that you'll actually be making your macrame knots with around the other cords. So let's start with the half square knot. Hold the two short cords stationary and take the right long cord and cross it over your middle cords like this. Next, you'll want to take your left cord, put it over the tail of the right cord, behind the middle cords, and send it through the loop that you made with the right cord, and pull it through. Hold the middle cord stationary and pull the two ends, sort of like the first step of tying your shoes. Pull it all the way up and make sure that everything is nice and tight and as close to the ring as you can get it. Now just follow that same pattern again. Right over center, left over right, left behind center, and out, through and over the right, and pull. Keep doing this and you'll notice that the knots will begin to form a spiral. This is exactly what we want, so it's okay if you flip everything over and work on it from the other side using the exact same pattern. Once you've made about an inch's worth of half square knots, take your ruler or measuring tape and find the point that is about 4.5 inches from the bottom of your spiral section. Make sure your spiral has ended in a way where all the cords lay flat and horizontally. If this means that your spiral section isn't exactly 1 inch, that's just fine. What we want is a nice even set of cords for this next section. Again, hold the middle cord stationary while working another half square knot around them. Again, right cord over middle, left over right, and then left behind middle and out the loop made by the right. Don't pull this one all the way tight because we do want that flat section of empty cord. Things do tend to shift a little bit, so try to measure periodically to make sure that you're staying consistent. Of course, this first rope doesn't need to be perfect as long as the other ones are tied at the same lengths later on. Now that I'm working on the section a little further down, I'm just going to hang up the other sections to get them out of the way. I didn't pull my second half square knot all the way tight because we're going to start adding some color. Take a single piece of your blue cord and find the point where you'll have about 1/3 of it on one side and 2/3 of it on the other side. That should be 1 foot and 3 feet. While maintaining hold on that center point, take the ends of your blue cord and thread them through the openings we've left between the half square knots. Grab the two ends of your white square knot and pull the knot closed. Make sure the longer blue piece is on the right. Switch the blue piece on the right with the white piece on the right. So now we will have 4 cords that will be inside of our knots, and you'll use the blue cord on the right and the white cord on the left to continue making half square knots. Notice that each time you complete a knot, the blue and white cord will switch sides. So every other knot, you should have your blue cord back on the right side. This section should be about 1.5 inches and will look like a spiral, just like your first section of half square knots. Once you're happy with that, it's time to add a decorative bead. And this is where capping the ends of all of our cords will really come in handy. You want to gather up all of those ends and sort of pinch them together. Make them as small as you possibly can. Grab your bead and push the ends of your cords through the hole. This may be difficult, but I find it easier than trying to string each piece on one at a time. Once the bead is on, pull each individual cord to make sure everything is even, and push the bead all the way up to your spiral. Next, locate the 2 outermost pieces again. If you're having a hard time finding them, you can pull the bead down slightly and pull the pieces you're looking for up from the top. When you pull the pieces from the bottom, you'll know you've got the right ones. Now keep working your half square knots in the same way for another 1.5 inches. Again, right over center, left over right, left behind center, and out through the right, and pull. Your second spiral section should be about 1.5 inches long, and the entire spiral, including the bead, should be about 3 inches. But you don't have to be exact as long as you're happy with how it looks. To make sure everything is facing the right way, you can twist the bottom spiral until you like the way that it lays. For this next section, we will want both blue pieces on the outside and all 4 white pieces on the inside of our knots. To do this, switch the white knotting piece on the right side with the blue piece from the core and make one more half square knot to finish the spiral. So now that both blue cords are on the outside, we're going to measure out a space just like the one that we did before, but this section will be about 3 inches. Hold that place and make another half square knot just like you've been doing. Right piece in front of the middle pieces, left over right, left behind middle, and out through and over right, and pull. Don't pull all the way up. Again, make sure that this is even and properly spaced. Only make one of these though, because this time we'll be making a knot in the opposite direction, which will turn your half square knot into a full square knot. Take the left piece and lay it over the middle pieces, right over left, right behind middle, and out through the loop made by the left piece, and pull. You see how with this pattern we've made a little square, hence the name square knot. Just pull it closed like you've been doing, and this is what your first square knot will look like. Don't pull it too tight because we want the middle pieces to lay nice and flat and even like you see here. Next, you can proceed by making 1/2 square knot starting on the right and making another one starting on the left. Alternate these until you have a 1/2 inch of this flat pattern. Now, take the 2 longest white pieces from your core and flip them with your 2 blue pieces so that you have 2 long white pieces on the outside. Tie a couple more sections of square knots around the 2 blue pieces and the 2 white pieces that will now make up your core. This section will be about a 1/2 inch. As we're getting towards the end of our blue pieces, the next step will be to measure out another 3 inches of empty space. With our white cords on the outside, you'll do just like you did before, holding the middle cord stationary and using the outside cords to make a square knot. Remember that a full square knot is just 2 half square knots that start in opposite directions, just like you see here, left over center, right over left, right behind center, and out through the left. Then right over center, left over right, left behind center, and out through the right. So what are we going to do with the ends of our blue pieces? We'll take our scissors and just cut them off as close to the knots as we can without damaging any other cords around them. Just give it a little snip and do the same to the other cord. And snip. There we go. The next step will be to cover those pieces up with more square knots. Make sure that you're knotting around the blue pieces so they're not sticking out and they are fully hidden. This section should also be about a 1/2 inch. And this is what one full completed section will look like. You'll just want to repeat this on the other 2 sections that you hung up at the beginning. Once you've done that, your project should look like this, and you're ready to connect your 3 sections together so that your project can hold a potted plant. And I've got my lovely assistant here because it is helpful to know what plant you're going to be putting in this holder. Look at the rim of the pot and take your cord and measure out about 1/3 of the way around the rim. Take 2 cords from the right and 2 cords from the left to measure this. You'll be using the 2 right cords from the left section and the 2 left cords from the right section. Join these together and find the spot that is just about as long as you determined you would need when you assessed the rim of your pot. I used about 3 inches, but your measurements will be different than mine, depending on the pot that you use. Do just like you did before when making square knots and hold the 2 middle cords stationary while taking 2 outside cords and wrapping them in a square knot pattern. Just like previous sections, this set of square knots should be about 1/2 inch. Repeat this process with the other 2 sections until everything is connected, sort of like a net. It should look like this. Next, you'll want to join all of your cords together at the bottom and pinch them together. Cut a foot-long section of cord from your longest piece at the bottom. And now we're going to make a wrapping knot. You'll take one end and hold it in between the fingers that are pinching all the other sections together, and create a long loop, which you'll bring back up and pinch the other end between those fingers so that you have something like this. Now take that end and wrap it around the rest of the pieces that you're holding, and keep wrapping until you're happy with how long this section is. You won't want to cover up the loop at the bottom, because you'll see what we'll do with that in just a moment. You can push the sections up to keep them all together. You want them to be nice and tight and uniform. Once it looks like this, take the loose end and put it through the loop that you left at the bottom. Once it's through, go back to the top and take the loose piece that you left and pull it tight. This will draw the loop and the loose end up through all the wrapped pieces and secure everything. Don't pull it all the way up, just leave it inside the wrapped pieces. Make sure everything is nice and tight and together, and there you go. You have your wrapping knot. Just make sure you clip off this little tail at the top here. The last step is to take your scissors and trim all of the excess pieces at the bottom. You can make them all the same length or different lengths, depending on your style. Now that we're all done, you may even want to fray the ends a little bit by rubbing them between your fingers. It's all up to you. And that's it, you're done. Here's your finished product. If you put your potted plant into the hanger, it should look like this. Thank you so much for following along with this video, and happy crafting!